Welcome to another episode of Council of Dime on Dime TV. I'm Dan. This is Arjun, and we're gonna get into all things Paradex related. How you doing today, Arjun?
Amazing, man. Always happy to be here. Excited to be here. I love how I love just seeing how the whole story of Dime TV is evolving right now, and I mean I've having fun building this with you. So yeah, definitely excited.
That's
Lots and
amazing. You got a good attitude for like having one of the worst days ever. That is amazing. I don't know if you want to share a little personal stuff today. If not, we can dive into the details.
all good. I mean, I've just been traveling today. I had two back-to-back flights today, which was unexpected. So I've been traveling for the last 40 hours or something, which was not planned. So really jet lagged right now, but it is what it is. Like always excited, always happy to be here.
That is a good attitude for having a lot of surprise travel in one day. So today we have a lot going on, and we're missing Steamboat and Wardy, but they will be making a brief appearance later in this video because they're on the Paradex World Tour, which we'll get into. We're going to be talking about affiliate badges, the Badger boxes, the new Paradex Chain Upgrade, the UI refresh. We're going
Wow.
to have Fiddy on. We're going to have Eli Ben-Sasson, the co-founder of Starknet and Zcash on. Him and Fiddy are just going to be having a very high-level conversation, and that's something you don't want to miss.
Correct. And I think this is what you call an ecosystem, right? Like this is when you're saying all the things that are rolling out and all the things that we are
Mhm.
doing. It's like, damn, this feels like an ecosystem. There's so many things happening on different levels. Like it's like us doing things on the ecosystem side. Then there's engineers who's been working for I know, I mean, we know how long this has been going. For context, for people who don't know, at Paradex, we have engineering meetings twice a week, and does not matter who you are. If you work in marketing, if you work as a recruiter, if you work as BD, if you have a non-tech job, everyone, every single person is supposed to attend the engineering meeting. And I mean, to be honest with you, it when I first started with this, it did not make sense to me. But with time, I just understood why that was a rule. I mean, it just makes so much sense. You just have so much empathy on things, and you have so much context of how much work goes into engineering as a whole. And that just tells you that, as a I never say things like, yo, push it super fast because I want to market this anymore, because I actually have started to understand all the minor and heavy details that go into things. So that has been a great learning, I guess, in the past 2 months.
Now, I gotta say, we do have these engineering meetings that we have to attend. I understand a small portion of the words they say. I consider myself pretty, techie, but these are words I've never heard of. I'm like, I don't know what that means. Is this good? Is this bad? I'll just hang out, and if they call on me, I'll be prepared to say something.
It's a great humbling experience. You need a
It is.
humbling experience on
Yeah.
Monday, start of the week, to
Yeah.
just tell you how smart a human brain can be.
Yeah.
So I mean, you can say that, there's a lot of thought and work that also goes into marketing. But I mean, I would always say that it's the other side. It looks like there's a mountain of problems to solve and work to do.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Where
but yeah,
sometimes I also have to stop you. I'm like, hey man, we can't be adding like more people to this stream. That's a lot of footage. That's a lot of editing. I was like, oh, we gotta like keep this very concise.
100%. But yeah, man, what updates? We have updates on the Paradex ecosystem, which is again, I think it was a great idea. It was a great experiment that has worked out so far. And for people
Yeah.
who don't have context, uh, we started Paradex ecosystem because we had so many other things to talk about, that we just realized after a point that from the main page we just can't, the community can't express itself at all times, because I mean the main page is always for the main announcements and we don't want it to get clouded. So it's let's start a ecosystem page where which can feed more to the voice of the community right now. And so far that has worked great. There are like so many things that got started on the ecosystem page, which was not by us, which was through like recommendations or ideas, and now we are adapting it on the main page. So that is like truly like a community run company, I would say. Like, for example, we're gonna start like putting weekly updates on the Paradex main page. We used to do that on Discord, but like never on the Paradex main page. And that started because like the community members and people suggested that, hey, like let's put like updates on all the things that has happened in the last 1 week on the eco page. And we're like, this is great, we should like do this on the main page. So it's like it's I would say it's going the other way around right now, where we are also like adapting a lot of things, and it's been pretty interesting.
Now, I want to talk about the affiliates and the ecosystem a little bit. So, last weekend, we gave out our first round of affiliate badges to
Yes,
the
sir.
community. This is something we're going to do each weekend. And if you want to be eligible, one, you have to apply. Two, Paradex.dime has to be in your username. And you have to be a supporter of Paradex just by making content. Now, for the first round of people, I'm really happy of the people that were approved just because they've been amazing supporters. They're in the replies of competitors, sharing Paradex. They're always like making amazing content and they're very supportive. And we have Roman.time in the chat right now. And and he has a badge just because he's always around. He's a supporter, and that's what we like to see. So, not everyone's going to get a badge, but every weekend we're going to have a select few people. So look forward to that and be sure to be a big supporter. And, we want to grow the community with the best
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, and to add to that also, right, like what Dan has said, we moving forward, we are going to be very selective on giving away badges. And to be pretty honest with you guys, like there might be like some accounts who in the future, if we think are not the right fit, we will slash their badges also. Because personally, the way we are like building this at Paradex also, we are a super lean team. We are a very, very, very lean team. When you just talk about the engineering department, we have only 5 code writing engineers. So we do believe that few people can do a lot, and that energy of people wanting to do a lot of things is what starts like a trickle domino effect, that aura that basically spreads everywhere. So it's also that we would, rather than having like 100 mediocre people, we would just have 10 people who are like obsessed with what we are doing. And we think that is like the only way to build a community. So you would see us getting more people, and you would also see us slashing a lot of people, just giving you a heads up.
Well said. Now it's really hard to find like the very passionate people. So that's why we're going to make some mistakes along the way, but we're still looking for you, the very passionate viewer, the Paradex supporter, because if you watch later to see what Fiddy and Ben say about privacy and the future of crypto, you're going to be very bullish.
Yep. Yep. I think, yeah, man, I think, and like how long we've been like, it's crazy to see, like even before privacy, how long we've been talking about RPI, how long we've been like talking about like just that like retail should pay zero fees, and like fees should be directly proportional to toxic flow, and that is why like RPI exists. And I remember in the last 6 months, there's been like so much pushback on RPI until Binance. And now like everyone believes in RPI now. So
Yes.
everyone thinks that is the right way to go. And we've been screaming, like literally screaming our lungs out that guys, RPI is the way. And the same way we were right about RPI, we know that we are right about privacy. And I mean, privacy is the way. I mean, like we recently saw the post from CBB hunting down a whale that has
Hold on.
yeah.
We're not talking about that because we're saving that for
Oh,
Fiddy
okay.
and Eli.
Okay, bro.
Let's not jump into that one, but it's something to look forward to because it's
Yeah.
very interesting. Now, let's talk about the Badger boxes. I believe there was another round that went out. So, can you
Yes.
share some stuff about that?
Yes, sure. So as we said about the badger boxes earlier as well, that we gave out badger boxes to the top 930 people in the beginning. These were like all the people who had 25,000 XP, like more than 25k XP. Like this is total XP, so season 1 and season 2, and this is earned XP only. So if you buy XP from OTC markets, you're not eligible for the box. And every week, of course, like there's lots of people trading right now. So every week we have new people who are crossing the milestone of 25,000 XP, and we are dropping boxes to them. And we are going to drop boxes to them for a while. The way we are doing the distribution, we've spoken about it earlier also. I'll repeat myself. It will happen in the order of priority, and the priority is directly proportional to like how much blood, sweat, and energy a person has put into Paradex so far. And I mean, like, no one has put more blood, sweat, and energy than people who have like earned XP on the platform, trading for like hours every single day for months. So 100% like that is going to be a first priority. And then, of course, post that, we would also like, we'll take care of Shizupunks, we'll take care of people on the wait list. That is all in the plans. But as we've said, that this is like an identity token. That means that people who are already like connected with Paradex and identify themselves as the part of this ecosystem, we want them to have this box and we want them to have this NFT. So yeah, that's the plan.
Now, speaking of identity, community, and the ecosystem, Paradex is on a world tour right now, and we have a few different people traveling right now. We have Steamboat and Wardy in China. We have Rob, Menno, and Nick in Europe. And we have some other events that we've already completed or some other events that are still on the calendar. Now, I think we should find out what they're doing and why. So we're going to cut the video over to Steamboat.
Hello, Dying PE, Steamboat here. So, as you can see, we're not in the office right now. We are actually in Chengdu, China. And when I say we, I meant me and Wardy, who is behind the camera at the moment. So, if you're also wondering, like, why are we in Chengdu, right? So, this is actually part of our China tour. We are going to be visiting 4 cities. We've done 2 so far and 2 more to go. And the 4 cities are Shenzhen, Chengdu, Xi'an, and Shanghai. So then, more questions, right? You're wondering, like, what are we doing in China? So we are basically here to meet our Paradex users, to meet more traders in China, and also to meet up with different trading communities. So China is an untapped market for Paradex, right? So this whole tour is with the intent to help people understand Paradex better and to onboard more traders into Paradex. So one of the interesting things that I noticed personally is that when we were in China, a lot of people already know of Paradex, have tried Paradex or have used it in some form or way, but they're not exactly sure that that's the right platform for them. So during our meetups, Wardy here was sharing like a lot of insights, a lot of like USPs about why Paradex is good. We've done comparisons with other platforms so that people understand what the differences are and where our strengths are as well. And some of the positive feedback that we got from people is that they finally understand like how, for example, no fees and revenue or no fees but alternative revenue is possible, and Paradex has that linked to RPI. So a lot of misconceptions as well around Paradex were kind of broken when we were able to talk to them personally, have them ask questions directly for us to address them, as clearly as we can to them. So this China tour is just one part of like the whole world tour that Paradex is on, and the whole world tour started actually from November. So November 7 to 8, Wardy here was in Bangkok, and then the following week from the 14th to 16th, I was in the Philippines for the trading competition, and then now we're in China with our boys Fabio and Andre who were in Argentina for Start Connect. Fabio is gonna be in Brazil for a Bitcoin conference, and this week we have Nick and Rob who are in Europe doing a tour. So they're going to be visiting Zurich, Amsterdam, London, and Paris. There are Luma events for the Switzerland, for the Amsterdam and for the Paris event. Keep a lookout for it. Join if you can, and we'll see you there. So the world tour doesn't end in November. It continues in December, where we're going to be visiting the United States. We're going to go to New York at Melis, and after that, we're going to go to Indonesia. So keep a lookout, stay tuned, and we'll...
Okay, we're back. Thank you, Steamboat. I like these live remote segments. We'll probably do this more often just because it gives us a break during the stream. So we have V Mark in the comments. Berlin, please. They probably just missed it because they're only in Europe for this week. So if you can make it out to Amsterdam tonight, there is an event, and Saturday there is an event in Paris. So potentially that. So Mark, check out that post that we're launching in like 20 hours. It'll have the announcement for the Paris event and the link. Now, with that said, there have been a lot of people interested in Paradex when we go to these events because sometimes you see a perp dex, but you don't really see why it makes a difference, why it's going to be here post TGE. Now, someone mentioned online, I'm going to take credit for it. TGE means team's going to exit, and that's what you see when there is not a any milestones. Like, all right, full unlock 6 months after TGE, while some teams like Paradex have performance-based unlocks. So you kind of want to dig
Right.
into the details, like what are they building for the long term, what kind of token structure there is, and what have they built in the past. Because as you know, if you are a fan of Paradex and you've been watching this channel, Paradex has been incubated by Paradigm Institutional Derivatives for I did not say that right. I'm gonna get killed now. I should not have mentioned that. I'm gonna let you take this one. Arjun.
Cool. I mean, like coming to performance based unlocks first. Like this is first of its kind. It has never been done in crypto before. And to give you an example, how a performance based unlock works is that I work in marketing. I lead brand, so it's like I have a few milestones that I want to hit by the end of this year, and if I don't hit those milestones, my tokens won't get unlocked. Like that is the part of the deal. It's like directly proportional to how good of a work you've done. And this is like some terms that are said that okay, this is like something that we are going to pull off, and basically you get close to your full unlock only if you do extraordinary work. So that is something. And I mean, like the team loves that right now because it's like it helps us just go at it. And then talking about the whole thing about long term and TGE is what did you say? What TGE was?
Team gonna exit.
Team gonna exit. Yeah, man. I mean, like I think like anyone who's known us, who's known Paradex, who's known Paradigm for a while knows that what the team is capable of and what the team has done in the past 7-8 years. Like you need to understand that Paradigm is one of the biggest institutional exchanges, like options exchanges on crypto. We do around 35% of derivatives total volume, and it's just that it is a super profitable business. And once that a Paradigm does anywhere between 2 to 2.5 billion dollars a day, so it is a super profitable business. And then on top of that, there's Paradex. So yeah, and I mean, like with zero fees, people think that okay, well, zero fees is a scam, whatnot. I mean, like if you have not seen extended debate, I would highly recommend you to go through that debate with like Anand and Ruslan, where like Anand has taken a deep dive on our vision on zero fees. But yeah, I mean, like we've been like very, very loud about it that zero fees is not a marketing feature. It is something that's going to be on the platform forever. And
Yeah,
we are seeing right now that like we are like growing as a platform. We are seeing that we are like generating real revenue from our makers by the whole model of zero fees. So we do think that zero fees is the way to go. And like clip this, screenshot Anand's tweets, clip him, and like save it everywhere. We are saying this that zero fees forever.
yeah,
So
because if you watch any interview with Fiddy, he talks about what they're building, what we're building, the DeFi Super Center, and we're not targeting like a TGE. We're targeting all of finance. The DeFi Super Center, one of the biggest financial centers out there, and Paradex is going to be that. So that is the goal. It's a big goal, and we're going to make that happen. And if you're watching this, you're here early.
yeah. I mean, like definitely you're early. I take the OG example of Google. Like like Google launched in 1998, but it was the eighth search engine that launched on the internet era, and it was like the fifth or the seventh year when Google launched, and before that there were like 7 other search engines. So you just see that there were a lot of people who at the time were like, oh, another search engine, what are they gonna do different, It's at the end of the day what your vision is. Like, we are not building till TGE, or we are not building for a successful token launch. We and that if you look into, if you introspect into all the things that we have done so far, with all the choices we have done, with installing RPI, with installing privacy, with just like choosing every single decision of how do we want to go forward and how do we want to build a product, you just understand that there's a lot of thought that has gone into everything. And that is because we want to build this as a generational company. We do believe in the entire vision of DeFi Supercenter, and we do think that what we are building right now, it's gonna be there after us. So yeah, I mean, like, it's a pretty ambitious vision, yes, but that is what we are going for.
Absolutely. And with that, we're going to continue building, improving the user experience, and continuing upgrading. So, speaking of that, just this week, we did two things. We upgraded Paradex Chain. And if you're not familiar, Paradex is its own independent blockchain built as a fork of Starknet. So, that's why we'll be talking with Starknet later. We're going to be talking about privacy. And in just a little bit, we're going to bring on MJ and Fiddy to talk about these enhancements, from the upgrade and to the UI for you, the user that is using Paradex.
Yeah.
So,
And I think I can like hype this
Hype
up
it
a
up.
little bit before these guys come
Yeah.
on the podcast. So MJ is someone who's been working on the UI, on the whole UI UX experience for the last, I don't know, even I have lost count, like how long he's been working on. But I've just like seen him, like, of course, like you've seen The Office in multiple live streams in various angles. So I have seen MJ sit in the morning and not get up from his chair from till like it's 11 p.m. and that he's done like every single day for the last 60 days non-stop, only working on the UI. And like Anand has been heavily involved in all the decisions that has made into UI. And it was like I had a discussion with him. It's like you have like because I really wanted to know. It was like, why are you so involved? It's like, yes, it is important, but I mean, like, it's in my head, it was like, it's a UI UX feature. It's like, okay, like you can just tell what needs to be done and like people will do it. You have other important things to do. Like, why are you like so fucking involved in this entire scene? And when I say so involved, he has involvement in like every inch, every centimeter of how the order book is looking, how the buttons are looking. He's like that is like the primary experience. Like, it's like the trader's house. Like, it's like it is what someone sees, and that is the screen on which people spend maximum amount of time. So I just want them to have a great experience. And I mean, like, they will of course dig deeper into what thought has went into it. But the model of what I'm trying to get into it is that everything that I have seen happen here, for everything in general that I've seen happen here, there's like a lot of thought that goes into building these things. So which is like always pretty inspiring to see. So it's like, it is so inspiring to see in general, like, because like I see MJ work and I'm like, this man has been doing this UI UX thing 12 hours, 14 hours a day without like blinking an eye. It's criminal to me if I don't do my job here. Like, it is like, unfair to him if I don't do my job as good as him. So
Yeah.
it's
So,
really like an environment where we are like very inspired by each other, which is like really good. But
yeah,
yeah.
the only time I've seen him take a break is to play basketball, and to play basketball very aggressively against his coworkers. So that's
Yeah,
where he takes out his energy.
I agree.
Speaking of MJ, time to bring him on. Welcome,
Let's
MJ.
go.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Oh, sounding sharp.
Yo, what's
Yo, yo,
up?
yo, yo.
Yo, MJ, is the UI ready?
Uh, yes. It's funny, really. We deployed today, like maybe like 30 minutes before the stream. Still
Yeah.
some teething issues to work out as with any big deployment, but I think it's more or less, we're getting there. Yeah.
Yeah, would you like to like talk a little bit about it? Like, what thought has gone into it? What I mean, like, you've been like on it for the last, I don't know, like I have lost count, but it's like you've done a great job. Like, you have anything to like say like what features or what things have taken like the most amount of time, what has been most challenging so far?
Yeah. I mean, it's been a long journey. It took a little bit longer than we expected to, I guess. But now that it's out, I mean, like it's really a labor of love from the entire Paradex team. I mean, it's not just myself, right? Like Anand has been watching over this UI, trying to make everything perfect, as what you mentioned, Arjun. We work with the designer as well, Ivas, as well as the rest of the engineers on the team to make sure that like everything is like perfect, like looks great. And yeah, I think what we were really trying to bring across for this UI was that we want to make things more professional, right? I think the previous iteration of the UI was a bit more fun, a bit more dynamic, more colorful, right? In this iteration, we thought, okay, we want to make it more focused. Like Paradex is a platform for both professional and retail traders. But if you are a Paradex, you are a power trader, right? You want to see everything, all your information, like cleanly, neatly, no noise, right? You might notice as well in the new UI, it's more compact, right? You can see more information at a glance. Compared to before where we had more padding, it was a bit wider, more retail like focused. Yeah, I think one thing that I'm really proud of as well is like the work that went into mobile, right? Previously, mobile was a bit like more neglected because it's not really the main place where our traders are right now, right? But we see a movement where more and more people are going to start adopting mobile, right? So we really put in a lot of thought into the tables. Right, so if you scroll down, just look at your positions, look at your open orders, your like trade history, so on and so forth.
You should share the screen.
Yeah, if you guys can bring up the UI, I think let me see if I can do that. Yeah, right here. Yeah, maybe I'll bring up later, but I think yeah, the cards, right? A lot of work has gone into just looking at like what other exchanges do, like trying to think as well like from first principles, like okay, how can we make this better? How can we make our product stand out? But I think with traders as well, we realize that traders are like creatures of habit, right? They stick to a workflow that they know, right? So we don't want to like revamp everything to the point where it's unfamiliar, where they don't really know where to find things what they're looking for, right? So it's kind of like a fine line we have to walk to make sure that we are both innovating from first principles to make things better for our users, as well as like not alienating the use that we really want to bring in from like sexes. Yeah.
Right. It has to be intuitive.
Exactly. Yeah, it has to be familiar. It has to be intuitive, and so there are the times where we think, oh, this can be improved. This can be better in a certain way, but you just have to balance that with, okay, will people be familiar with this? Will they be comfortable using this product if they, right? So we just want to like straddle that line. Yeah.
Well said. So I think Arjun and I are just gonna roll out, and then you and Fiddy can talk into detail of like the UI and the Paradex Chain Upgrade.
Yeah. I mean,
Hi guys.
Yeah, so I guess it's just the two of us, bro. No, I think it's important. You said some really. I think you kind of like hit the two things on the head. It's just like when we first built Paradigm, for instance, Paradigm by comparison is a very institutional UI, right? It's kind of like very plain vanilla, and then but that because that's kind of my background, right? Before I built Paradigm, I was at on an institutional trading desk, and so I kind of like natively understand what people want. And so when I was building Paradigm, there was like there was no never doubt in my head of what the UI should look like, right? Because I just intuitively knew what to build because I was a user, I was a trader, right? So so in that sense it was very easy. And so like we didn't like the kind of like part discovery cycle that we kind of like went through for this one. There wasn't much of that when we built Paradigm, right? But then when we built Paradex, I think the first version of Paradex was quite it was more leaning. It was like we tricked ourselves into believing that you want to be more like a native Web3 company, which is like the lots of the purples and things like that, right? And kind of like the new age cyberpunk kind of like vibes. And I mean, it was a good experiment, but I think it was very clear from all the feedback that we got from people that this is what people want is what traders want. Even retail traders, they effectively want simplicity. They want functionality, right? So they'll choose function over form. Higher information density. Ease of use when you're scanning things, like not too many things out of place, and the familiarity. I think and I think you also have to kind of critically also make another assumption, is that users are not only trading on your platform, right? And so if that's the case and they're trading across multiple platforms, and you can see that in perplexes and stuff too, right? Because people are farming different UIs or UXs, or different perplexes, then you kind of like, if they come to your platform, like your platform cannot look very different than what they're used to everywhere else, because they're just like, okay, this is too hard to trade on, and you might just lose the user, right?
Right.
So I think that's an important point. And yeah, I know we put a lot of work into it. I really like the work we did on mobile, because I think it like sets the foundation for, this is like V1 of, like, I don't know whether you would agree, but I consider this to be like not even one, it's like 0.1, which is like, it's like the bare minimum kind of like framework, and the foundation is in place that we can really build on now. And we fixed all of the other like patchy kind of like UX workflows that we had in the back. And it might not look, that much. I mean, it does look markedly different from all the comments that I'm seeing, but what people don't see is just like how scalable it is on the back, because now we have like broken it down into these like very easy components and workflows and schemas that we can now reuse kind of across the platform. And I think that, that's going to be awesome, because it very quickly we'll be able to roll this out across.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think I agree that it's kind of like a V1. It's kind of like our first step towards building what we think is the perfect platform to like trade anything, DeFi super centered. Like that's what we're really going for.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just, there's so many changes to make. There's so many things that we want to improve on this UI or user experience that, that's really, we just have to start somewhere, right? And this is kind of like our first like jab at moving towards that more like professional, like more like perfect vision of what a deck should look like. Yeah.
Yeah. What was your favorite part of building it?
Yeah, I think working with a team that really cares about like the details, I think that was like really fun for me. I know Arjun mentioned like I worked like really hard on this, like 9 to 11 allegedly, right? But I think the motivation comes from just working with people who really care, firstly about the product, and secondly, like they know their stuff, right? I mean, Anand is a founder of, he's a finance guy, right? Obviously, with some like a tech background, right? But for him to care so deeply about the details, to want things to be perfect, right? And that coupled with his background in like trading and stuff like that, for him to know like what traders want, I think that's really great for me, right? As a learner, right? Because before this, I had like little to no like trading experience. Like I'm pretty new to trading, so I wouldn't call myself a seasoned trader, but like getting this intuition for like what people want, both in terms of in the details as well as like the concept, right? Traders want determinism, right? They want things to be risk-free, right? So your UI cannot be like jumping around, right? So all those lessons, I think, like really like make this like a fun experience for me, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting point you mentioned, right? I like that framing. I mean, we use that framing internally, and we've talked a lot about it, which is like, if there's inconsistency in the UI, then effectively that is inconsistency from a design perspective introduces uncertainty from a workflow perspective. And uncertainty to a trader is really like the mathematical form of uncertainty is really risk, right? And so if basically it's like inconsistency leads to uncertainty, leads to risk, and risk is something traders fundamentally are trying to always lower risk and increase return, right? So yeah, I always try to tell engineers or to think about it in those terms, because they tend to think in terms of like old UI or new UI or this or that. But like if you kind of give them this framing of like, hey, you should think like, I know this is software, but you're making software for traders. And because you're making software for traders intuitively always think about, they always have like a risk return framework for everything, right? It's just like, if I'm engaging in something, what is that risk and what is the upside, right? And so like, I think that like basic unit of thinking permeates at the UI level too.
Yep.
And And so like, yeah, I think if we adopt that into everything, which we have now, and I think we've set really the foundation, I think it will be over time, these benefits will really, they will compound, and it will be like increasingly clear that there's this like real attention to sort of detail to it, right? I think the other thing, interesting thing, which is kind of like tangentially related to this, is that like we have no product managers at Paradex or Paradigm, right? Which is like, we have no managers either. It's just engineers and me and the founding team, basically, right? And I think that's also new, right? For people, especially like if you come from another company, yeah, there's usually a hierarchy of people, and like organizationally, you're structured in a certain way, and then you come here and there's like nobody in between, and you're basically you're the engineer, you're the product manager, you're the tester, you're basically, you own the entire thing end to end, and you're coordinating. So like what was that, I mean, you've been here what, like 6
Almost
months?
like a little more than 6 months maybe.
Yeah, so 6 months now. So like what do you think of our culture? It is like it's kind of unique, right? Like I don't see many companies kind of doing what we do.
I think it's definitely more meritocratic. I think if we link this back to like the UI that we just built together, right? I think in a regular company, right, you report to a manager, maybe, or like a product designer, right? The designer will tell you like exactly what you're going to build, and then you just, as an engineer, maybe there's a bit of back and forth, but you eventually just like do the thing. You build the thing, right? And that's fine. It's not very exciting because you're putting all your trust into like that your manager knows best, right? Or your product designer knows best, and there's not much of like a element of like teamwork to this, right? You're just a builder, right? Compared to here, like we have like full autonomy over what we are building, right? I felt like even though like I'm going to my designer, I'm going to Anand, right, to get like insights on how exactly to build this particular thing. It was always a discussion. It's kind of like a flat like hierarchy. And the other thing is that like when I go to people here to ask for advice, it could be like Anand, it could be like other traders that work at Paradex. I kind of always have full confidence that they know what they're talking about, they know what they want, and so this is like a perfect like user feedback. I know that if I build this thing after our discussions, I built the thing that we discussed, our users are going to be delighted. They're going to love the thing because we have people here who know what they're talking about, and they know what our customers want as well. Yeah, so I think that's really the difference. Previously, you kind of like you're abstracted away from the end result, but here, we talk to customers, we use the product ourselves. So I mean, it's just exciting when you release something, right? People are gonna you're gonna get feedback directly from users, and you kind of like it's just fun when you build that way.
Yeah, there's something to be said about. I mean, at least for me, it's always been about like I get like a certain type of like high when I see when you truly see like you've delighted a customer or you've delighted a user. There's like something. It's like addictive, right? Because there's just something about it, and I think it's always been like that for me. Whether for Paradigm it was true, and it is for Paradex as well. It's just like you're just so eager. I mean, we've been working on this thing for a while, and yeah, I think there's this excitement like okay, we're going to roll this thing out, and like what are people going to say, right? I mean, there's also people always, there's obviously all types of comments, but like just to know that there's a class of users for whom this perfectly resonated with, and they see the work that you've kind of put into it. It's like it's a great validation for me, and for it's always been one of the reasons why I love to be like a builder,
right?
I mean, trading was fun. It's like there's trading is fun, and that's my background. But like I feel like I've found like a different type of love for building, right? Which is kind of like it's a different reward mechanism. It takes almost like it's longer. You're like longer kind of like cycles to like you put in the work, put in the work, and then at one time, there's boom. It's out, and people see the value of what the work or the value that you put into it, and that's a really cool experience. I enjoy that quite a bit.
Now, I just want to jump in here. I noticed that the Discord community is already talking about the new UI, and that's through like fostering a community where they can have a conversation about things happening on the platform, and they get direct access to Fiddy. So I think that is like one of the most unique things I've ever seen in anything crypto related, where you have access to the founder, where you can provide feedback, and we iterate on that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, obviously, like validation from the community is like great and all, but I think what really gets us going as well is the feedback that we receive. I mean, we love it when our customers give us good constructive feedback, because firstly, it means that they care about our product enough to talk about it, right? But also, it gives us a good idea of like, okay, like things we can improve on, like how we can build. And it's like a challenge in a way, like at least for me personally, to see like, okay, like how can I make this as perfect as possible, right? How can I, it may not start perfect, right? There may be some like things here and there that like might not work as well, but I know eventually we can get to a state where this is like as perfect as it can be for like the majority of our users. Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to mention that I've been at Paradex for about 2 months. I don't recognize anyone in the background walking around. It's like, I don't know any of these people.
Yeah, they're all visiting from. I don't think you've met them then.
Yeah.
They're all they're in the office for the big. We had the big upgrade.
Mhm.
It was a big week for us, right? We pushed 14.0, which again, I think, and I just wrote about this in the announcements channel. It's just that this is V2, right? It wasn't just the UI that we pushed today, but it's like one part of like a 3-part upgrade that we've been kind of cooking really since 10.10, which is Black Friday, which was obviously really bad for most of the market. We were very lucky in that our systems kind of held up. We had no downtime, and and we didn't have ADL and so on and so forth. But it was very clear at that point that we need to be ready for 100x scale, right? Because overnight, I mean that 24 hours, like our systems, and then basically the network got absolutely hammered, right? Like we were seeing, in many cases, on certain types of requests, like 50 to 60 times what we normally would like. It was 50 to 60 times our previous highs, which is basically at that point it's like over 100 times what we normally expect. And so I mean it's both good news and bad news, right? Because good news because, oh great, there's there's that much demand, but bad news is, holy shit, like this is way bigger than we could, than what our systems can handle. And so it was very clear to us that like we just absolutely just whatever we were doing at that point, we needed to stop, and we needed to completely basically go in and fix all the things where that basically like were under high load or basically came close to breaking. And one rule I always follow in crypto is just like you never get the same opportunity twice, right? Especially if there's a bug or there's some vulnerability in the system, whether that's like either an actual vulnerability from a security perspective, or it's a bug, or maybe part of one service doesn't scale. You shouldn't ignore that, because that's like a death sentence. It's like you never know what is like lurking around the corner. If there's another black swan event like 10.10, or there's a hacker, or there's an exploiter, right? In these permissionless kind of open systems, you have very little control over who gets to interact with your systems, and you have even lesser control over what the market decides to do on a particular day, right? And so if you find something like that and you run into like an issue, and then you say, you know what, I'll fix this in 3 to 4 weeks, it's a death sentence, right?
Yep. Exactly.
So 10.10 obviously was a big deal for us, and we said, okay, whatever we're doing, let's stop doing. And that's part of the reason why options was delayed, which at that point, we had portfolio margin slated to be released, we had dated options slated to be released, but we said, no, you know what, the core platform just got whacked, and we need to set ourselves up for 100x scale, right? And we need to do that in the next 3 to 4 weeks, right? And I think very proud that 2 of 3 of those components, one was the chain, which obviously at that point we were already testing, but it took us a little bit longer. But 14.0 was very smooth, buttery smooth. We had scheduled 2 hours for it, touch wood, and everything did well. Real credit to the engineers here, credit to my T9 team, who absolute like wizards, and they've been cooking at this for the last 2 months, right? So that went well. And then of course we have the first part of the core trading UI that we released today, and then the final kind of big change is really all the latency improvements on the WebSocket rewiring that we're doing. That I think that should be a significant unlock, because I think right now on P 95, I think we do something like 250, 200, 250 ms, 250 milliseconds. For those who don't know what that is, but post this upgrade, I think it should, we should be in the 50, 75. So at least 4 to 5 times improvement, which I think in the amount of time that we had, I think that's really amazing, and it will be very visible on the UI. Also, like you'll see faster position updates, you'll see faster order book updates. I think those changes are pending.
Yep.
So yeah, faster position updates, faster order book updates, and in general, just the responsiveness of everything should feel much snappier once we roll all these out.
Exactly. I guess I'm not sure if you share the same view as me, but I kind of see this as like an evolution, right? We had like Paradex before, we're running Paradex for a while. I mean, that's kind of like our, I guess, like Paradigm's first foray, right, into like building a DEX, right? And now that we've kind of like scaled to this level, we kind of see all the problems that might come up, right?
Yeah.
This is our way of building the next generation of a much better like user experience,
Yeah.
right? Whether that's on the UI side or like all the cloud changes, the reliability of the platform, right? Like what we can do on chain. I think I'm really excited for like what we're going to be building over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and that's generally like our ethos here. It's just like, never stop iterating, right? It's just like speed plus relentless iteration. I don't care. Your competitors might be ahead of you by, a year, 2 years, and in centralized exchanges cases, they're ahead of us. They have a 5-year head start over us, some in some cases even more. But if you have, a strong vision and you have a fucking great team and you just heads down are just always shipping relentlessly, improving on the previous design, like just the power of iteration and the laws of compounding kind of guarantee you that at some point, if you keep doing that and you stay at it, you will basically race past any competitor, right? So
yeah.
So at that point, like basically at the margin, I think the only thing that matters is how determined you are to win, right? And I don't think we have any shortage of that here. So Dan, yeah, I guess I'm like curious, like from an outsider's perspective, because you came from like a media background, right? I mean, just our culture is pretty unique here, right? Like, what's your perspective? Like, what's give us your? I mean, I know I'm your boss and everything, so you don't have to say all the good stuff online, but spill the beans on like I'm curious, like what I think like it was a chance meeting and how we got to connect and stuff. But like, what's your perspective? You've been here 2 months now. What's your take on our culture?
Passionate, user first.
It's a good choice of words.
Yeah, passionate, user first. Like I know you emphasize this a lot, but it's all behind the scenes. It's all in like the team meetings. It's like users first. We'll lose the money if we have to, but we won't lose the trust in users. And that is something you don't see, especially from me working at a more corporate place where I was like, no, it is not users first. It's money first.
Yeah.
So that is one of the bigger things. So, I've never seen someone so passionate about really looking out for the user and for the community. And I think that's what really drew me. Like, I gotta be on this team.
It's awesome, man. It's good to hear. It's good to hear.
Yeah, just add on to that as well. I think like the work can be pretty hard, right? I mean, we all work really hard here, right? I think that's like shared. But when you're in the same boat as everyone else who's doing the same thing, I mean, that it just feels like it's worth it. And then secondly, I think this doesn't work without good leadership. And like good leadership, I don't mean like just like principles. I just mean like people you can trust, right? If you know these people are the best at what they do, right? Then like okay, fine. Like you wanna be like really like if you want to be hard on me, you want to like work me really hard. I guess that makes sense to me, right? Because at least I know that whatever I do is not going to be for nothing. There's going to be an end goal. It's going to work out.
Purpose.
So as long as I trust the process and put in the work, right, it's going to work out well for all of us.
Yeah. It's a good point. One of the principles around like how we kind of even arrived on our culture is this kind of open form. Like everything here is like pretty deliberate, right? Like we have these 2 meetings per week And the goal really is not because like it's not that it doesn't stem from this idea of rigidness, which is, oh, we don't like meetings, so therefore we have less meetings. Like, no, it's more so that like the type of culture, at least I picked this up. I read a book one time about it wasn't a book, it was a book about the founder of Rentec, which is like this tech driven hedge fund, Jim Simmons or Jim Simons, I forget how you pronounce his name. And they asked him like, what is the culture at Rentec? And his answer was just so matter of fact, and it's so profound for me that it stuck. And this was like in 2012 or 13, when they kind of did like a profile on him. And he said something to the effect of like, they asked him, okay, what is the culture at Rentec? And he goes, he's like, hire smart, low ego people, give them the best resources that you can afford, make sure everybody is talking to everybody, and get the fuck out of their way, right? And that's a big, in many ways that's been the kind of like the shaping principle to how I think about building culture here. Is just like the bar is very, very high. It's just like, so you need to be very, very, the bar is just very, you need to be very tough on who you decide to let in. So the process for coming in, you deliberately need to like introduce time, you need to introduce variability, you need to push and pull the candidate and see how they kind of react. And it's not just like a technical interview, it's a cultural interview. We see how fast you learn, you see how you adapt under pressure. But then also once you're in, like very quickly, it's people here either they love it or they hate it, right? And I think that's a good thing. It's like it's a forcing function into, hey, do you really want to come along with us to do this big ambitious thing? And if you do, you better be fucking sure, because if you're not sure, then you're going to flame out, right? Because this it's hard, right? You're working in close proximity every day. Like there's no managers, you're working with the founders. And our bar is high because for us this is our baby, right? Like I've given my life for this. So for me, if I'm giving this much time and energy into something, and then my neighbor isn't, then it's like what, like to me it's like almost like it's like you're violating something that I think is sacred, right? And I think that's important. And so I think culture is very important. And it's just, at least like I've understood how important culture really is. It's not just important, but it's like the most important. So you have to really be deliberate about how you hire, how you retrain, how you fire, and how you, of course, motivate people into. And this open format that that we were just talking about, is a very critical part of that. It's just, you want information to flow freely between people. And even the way these screens are set up, and I'm not sure if people can see this in the back, but like we have these 4 big screens, and it's very deliberate, right? Screen 1 has all the KPIs for the exchange, like DAUs, volume, etc. The very TVL, all the obvious things. Screen 2 is the quality of liquidity. It's a real time view of liquidity on the exchange. Screen 3 is the latency, because that affects API traders and the market makers, which are a big part of the system. And Screen 4 is mindshare, because ultimately you care about because it's a retail, it's a consumer facing business, and people care. And like, by intent, is as people enter the office and leave the office, the first thing they see is these screens, right? So it's like, again, it's like there's an intent behind why you have this office. So people, even unconsciously, you're always looking at the things that matter. And even our meetings when we face the meetings are done facing these metrics. And so whether you like it or not, these numbers are always on screen. And so even if you don't know what those are, at some point you're going to be like, okay, what the fuck is this number? Right? And then that's like, and nobody needs to stand around to tell you, hey, this number matters. It's like by virtue of you just seeing it every day, right? So I think there's all these little things I've learned, and we've learned as a company over the last, like, we've been doing this. People, again, another thing people don't know is like, this is I've been doing this since 2018, right? And so like, you learn all these things about like how to, how to kind of create the best team and create the most optimum conditions for success. And I think that's that it's been, I think that of all the things that I've learned, I think these lessons have been the hardest, because it's very difficult to undo cultural problems, because once they are set and ingrained, it's it's almost impossible to change the culture of a company once it is set without basically cleaning house.
Dan, I think you're muted,
You're
sir.
muted, Dan.
Hey guys, we got Eli backstage and we'll get started soon. So I think this is the moment where we switch off. And MJ, time for you to leave.
All right.
I'll hang out. And Fiddy, you're driving this conversation, but I'll also hang out to jump in if needed.
Sure,
All
sounds
right.
good.
Good to be here. Cheers.
All right, brother. Thank you.
All right.
Welcome, Eli.
Hi there.
Oh, sure. You want me to say that? Yeah. Hey, Eli, how's it going, man?
Very good. Should I call you Fiddy or some other name?
Whatever you want, sir. You are an OG. Whatever you know. For you, it's whatever you like.
Just 1 second. By the way, guys, I'm hearing him. No, I'm hearing him from the speaker, not from my.
I'll have to change it. Can we?
Yeah. We're not on record yet, right?
I think you're live. But is it a problem if you hear from there?
I prefer listening. I hearing it from my.
Yeah, go ahead, of course.
Anand, can you hear me well?
Yeah, perfect.
Just 1 second. We're just trying to fix some things.
Where can I edit that?
Okay.
Default. Correct.
Låt oss se main stereo.
Where's the next?
Can
you hear it now?
Anand, can you say something, please?
Hello, hello.
No, I still can't hear him from there.
Just 1 minute. Audio. And now.
Anand, you say something?
Hello, hello. Can you hear me now or no? No.
Can you please say again something?
Hello.
Oh, there we go. Now it's good.
Okay, perfect.
Terrific.
Are we good?
We are perfect.
Okay, perfect. Well, welcome, Eli. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time. I know you're a busy guy.
Thank you for having me here.
No, and very exciting time for the Starknet ecosystem and in Cairo in general. As you know, privacy is finally back in vogue. Only took the market what 5 years 5 years to figure out this was needed.
Look, I co-founded Zcash in 2014, and the token launched 2016. So it's only been 9 years,
Wow.
something like a decade.
Wow, that is insane. And I still think, people, I mean, privacy is obviously very important. We understand this deeply. You're one of the godfathers of ZK. You understand this better than anybody. But even now, like I still feel like, people, there's a class of people who still brush this aside as just another narrative, right? So what we know, I guess that's my starting question to you is one is, what do you think of all this recent wave of enthusiasm that we've seen over the last, let's say, 3 to 4 months, mainly driven by the price of Zcash, and unfortunately the market only pays attention when the price of something goes up, but that is the way of the world. There's nothing we can do about it. What how are you feeling about this, right? Because you founded Zcash, you co-founded Zcash, obviously you've been doing this longer than most people can even imagine in this space. 10 years in crypto is 50 years in regular world. What is your perspective? I would love to what was your first reaction when this happened? What happened in that first week? How are you feeling today? I want to know.
So first of all, the way I think of it, I like to say that I live in the future, meaning, and I'm not the only one. Like, some of us live in the future in the sense that there are things that are very clear to us, but it takes the rest of the world a little bit of time to catch on. And I'm not alone. I think Naval was one of the earliest supported, Naval Ravikant, the famous investor and general, I'd say a startup philosopher, was one of the early backers of Zcash for the right reasons. And people on privacy maybe now they're catching on, but like really you cannot think about the hard asset economy, the stuff that Bitcoin started. You cannot think about that entering the real world without having privacy, because like I give this example all the time. So here at Starkware, employees are eligible to receive a portion of their salary on Starknet, and many of us choose to do so. So my CFO comes and says, "Look, this is a problem, right? How are we going to do this? Because each employee can know what the other is getting. Our competitors can, with a browser, see what's going on. Not a good thing."
Yep.
And so, if you're not just some degen, if you're a degen with a small sum of money playing in crypto, maybe you don't care about privacy. But if you're a serious company, or if you're James Wynn and everyone notices you, I guess it's for the same reason, right? If you're big enough, then there are others who would be really interested in what you're doing. So privacy is a must. And it just took a little bit of time for the rest of the world to catch up and realize this.
Right. But like, so I think it's like clear to you. Obviously, it's very clear to me. It's very clear. But like, do you think this time around, because we have seen this like newfound enthusiasm, do you think it will fade once the price fades, or do you think it's it's for here to stay? And there's a cohort of people now that say, okay, you know what, this matters, right? Like, what would you say to that?
Okay. It will stay, and the reason it was so I don't know about the enthusiasm and the markets and the price. That I don't know. It could stay, it could wane, it could go and then come back. But here's from the day we founded Starkware, we knew that the ZK technology that I co-invented has two superpowers. One is the scale, and the other is privacy. And for a very long time, we at Starkware said, okay, we need to focus on scale first. There is a clear demand for that. The markets don't care enough yet about privacy. So what has happened recently, because of this, we are now very happy. Like, my engineers, my team, all the gigabrains working here are extremely happy that we are now taking the dust off of a bunch of things related to privacy and putting them into action. So I'm saying this to answer your question. It's not going away. So like, Starkware is one of these infrastructure teams. When we start doing something, we do it very well for a very long time. So even if prices or markets change course tomorrow, we are already set on a very exciting track to deliver a lot of things related to privacy. So, and I'm sure we're not the only ones. So this is not some, moment in time that goes away. Things are going to change, and privacy is going to be a big part of, what Starknet is, what other teams are doing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I echo this sentiment too, right? I'm bringing up this tweet on screen, which this is from a couple of days ago. There's this big whale on Hyperliquid. He was short 50 million worth of hype, and there's another account which is one of the larger accounts is literally putting out a tweet, retweeting that person's position, saying, hey, if you're willing to hunt this dude with size, drop a DM. I'm setting a team up right now and already got good size, right? So I mean, if there's any proof that people need to be convinced that privacy is bad, I mean, this is right here, right? It is there's private information that is available out to the market, people taking that information and then setting up a team to profit from that information, right?
Yes.
And I think it stems from this fact that, and I think most people don't think like this. I've been on a trading desk many years in my past life, and people don't tend to think of information as a cost. They think of information just as information, right? But as a trader, you know that all information is a cost that can be factored into the price or the spread. And once you start thinking like that, right, then it becomes very clear that, like, okay, if information is a cost and my information is now a cost to somebody else or is a profit to somebody else, then I should be protecting that information in a way in which other people can basically benefit from that, right? And because trading and execution is a zero-sum game, you basically, like, if I'm giving away information on one side, basically the other side instantly sort of profits from it, right? So you're seeing this now play out, very, very sort of like clearly in the markets, and thankfully that's, people are waking up. So I too kind of share, I wanted to play devil's advocate a little bit when I asked you that question, but I too believe, I've had privacy maxi. I think when we first started speaking, one of the reasons, I mean, the two reasons you mentioned for why what ZK Starks represent to the world are the two reasons why we decided to go with private Starknet. Back then it was not even called an app chain, right? And this was like our earliest conversations with Uri and you, and it was very clear to me. This was back in 2022. Like there was no app chain, there was no public Starknet, there was nothing. But somehow I just I think I've told you in one of our discussions that I just knew instantly that we had some part to play in bringing this technology to the world, and I still believe that this day, and I still think, yeah, of course, and I still think people are sleeping on the power of ZK Starks. I think ZK Starks will be the foundation of every. Will literally be the reason blockchain scale, right?
Yes.
And I don't think
And you haven't even mentioned the latest thing, which is post-quantum security, that is now all of a sudden very, everyone's talking about that. ZK Starks are also the best way to...
Maybe you can give us like the quick kind of like the layman's version of what that means, and why Starks are post-quantum secure and Snarks are not, right? It's just like a quick version for people to understand.
Yeah, so so there are a lot of advances on quantum computation. I'm not an expert on this field, but more and more the experts are saying, folks like Professor Scott Aronson, who's like probably the most eloquent, well-spoken expert on the matter. By the way, next week I'm going to have him talking with me on a podcast exactly about this topic. So more and more of these people are saying, look, there might be a big scale quantum computer out there. Now, let me break out what that means. First of all, it would be spectacular, exciting news in the world of computation and physics, because we still don't quite know whether this is possible. It's a little bit like one of those things like time travel or things that sound too good to be true. Because what a quantum computer does is that it uses the completely insane laws of physics that Einstein had a hard time believing in, and anyone who studies them for the first time, they sound impossible and they contradict all our intuition. But in the case of cryptography, what this means is you often have to sort of go through a lot of numbers in order to find out how to break something.
Yeah,
exactly. And somehow, mysteriously, for very specific cases, in particular factoring and stuff related to that, factoring integers, the laws of physics allow us to check all of the numbers at once. And it sounds like impossible. Like, how can this be done? But again, if quantum mechanics is true at scale, this can be done. And then the effect of that is that anything that relies on what's called number theoretic assumptions, and that includes RSA, Diffie-Hellman, elliptic curve cryptography, all of these things just crumble and break because of quantum.
And these things you mentioned are the foundations of current public blockchain infrastructure, right? This is very, very critical to what public private. Without that,
not just that, of the internet as well. It's like a lot of every time you go and buy something on the internet and you see this little lock, what happens is it starts with a handshake in which your computer and the other side run something called Diffie-Hellman or some elliptic curve stuff. All of these, and then you agree on some other key and you start talking privately. That's what your computer does, 100 times a day. So the handshake part needs to be replaced. And if you go to Bitcoin, you need to replace the way you sign on transactions and a whole bunch of things. Now I'm getting to Starks. So ZK Snarks, as currently used in Zcash and other places, they also crumble and break because of quantum computer. But ZK Starks don't. They are resilient to this. There's actually no secret that can be leaked that will break the system. And they are immune to that, and you can replace the signatures in Bitcoin or in Ethereum or any other place with post-quantum secure stuff. And on Starknet, first of all, we rely on ZK Starks for everything, so that part is immune. And even the way you sign on transactions, because we have native account abstraction, it already supports today any new kind of signature scheme, including one that would be post-quantum secure. So like Starknet is probably the most quantum resistant, blockchain in production out today. We're not there exactly yet, but it's going to be like very easy for us to change a few things in order to make it 100% post quantum secure.
And why would you say why are Starks why are they secure? Like what property about them? Maybe you can just summarize without getting technical. What makes them so resilient?
Yeah. So when you look at whether something breaks or doesn't break under a quantum attack, you look at what are the security assumptions that it uses, and then you examine each one of them and you ask, does it break under a quantum computer? So there's only one assumption that ZK Starks use, and that is that you have what's called a collision resistant hash function. So as long as you have this thing called a collision resistant hash function, Starks are safe. And the good news is that there are many, many collision resistant hash functions out there today, that each one of them is post quantum secure, including SHA-2, SHA-3, Blake. Almost I would say most of the hash functions that folks are using today in Bitcoin on the internet are post quantum secure. And all we need for ZK Stark is for one of them to be secure. So that's why ZK Starks are secure, because the only building block you need is post quantum secure.
Okay, understood. Okay, so basically TLDR, quantum computing, and basically allows us to basically kind of like somehow magically violate the rules of physics in where in order to basically launch some sort of attack on a system, instead of kind of computing everything like a normal computer would do. We kind of like somehow paralyze that infinitely.
Exactly. Parallelize.
And we find this kind of like general direction of where the solution is, and are able to basically somehow like jump space and time in some way to basically arrive on that. And because of that, and because of that, it basically lends itself to basically easily breaking everything. But now that we are basically there, Starks in particular, like even if a computer, quantum computer basically does this, they still run into this property. I think, what did you just mention, that where Starks just need one of the functions out there to be what would you say, collision resistant? And is that a right framing of it? And if that is true, then a quantum computer basically cannot break.
Yes.
Is that a good characterization?
Yeah. I mean, what a different way to say it is that many people probably are familiar with this famous paradox of Schrodinger's cat. What is it? There's a cat that based on exactly that is like in this thing called superposition. It is both alive and dead at the same time. Okay, so a quantum computer, when it comes to factoring, can somehow sort of multiply and amplify this Schrödinger cat kind of state, and you can at the same time check out all possibilities of many of these cats, live, dead, all kinds of combinations, an exponential number of them, and then find out what is the factoring of a number or a secret behind a snark. But it's not that quantum physics allow us to do anything we want, and there are some things that it just can't do. In particular, it cannot for instance, find a collision in a hash function. It cannot look at all sequences of, possible bits that could be an input to SHA-2 and find two strings that would have the same output. This is not allowed by the laws of physics. So some things do break, some other things don't break. And luckily, ZK Starks only require the kind of stuff that doesn't break under a quantum computer.
Fantastic. What an amazing time to be living, right? It's just like we have this intersection of basically all of the frontier technologies that were frontier technologies, from 5 or 10 years ago, are now soon to be in either already in production or soon to be in production. And now we're finding like, okay, how do we kind of make these things resilient to the newer things that are coming? Amazing. It's truly a fascinating time to be both a builder and an inventor, as like you as well. So thank you for that. One point which I think we've kind of jumped into directly is Starks and Snarks, etc. The differences between the two.
I can't hear you for some reason. I think you're muted. Oh yeah, you need to press the
oh, sorry. Yeah, my bad. So we've kind of stepped kind of like right into the meat and bones of Snarks and Starks and why one is more resilient versus the other. But maybe we take a step back and privacy today, maybe you can touch upon, I mean, people have heard about privacy in different ways, but like specifically for you, maybe you can give us, some sort of like overview of like, what is the difference between, let's say, ZK Starks versus, I saw you having a friendly back and forth with one of the founders of, I forget what Aztec, not Aztec, I forget which of the projects out there, but they're basically pushing for FHE, or full
Yes.
homomorphic encryption.
Yeah.
So maybe you could give us a, kind of like an overview of like, privacy as it relates to ZK Starks and FHE versus, let's say, something like Tease. Like, what are they, kind of like, just for the audience, and why do you think ZK Starks are the scalable kind of way to pursue this stuff?
Okay, so the one important thing that ZK Starks give you is they give you privacy with something additional. That something additional is really important. It is a proof of integrity. You know that the right computation has been done, even though you can't see anything about it. So it's the combination of these two things. I always say, I said this already back when I was describing, Zcash, back when I co-founded it. I said, actually, shielding, making things private is really easy. You use encryption, or put them inside a sort of an envelope, like a cryptographic commitment, like a hash. So shielding is really easy. The only problem is that of integrity. So if I wrap it inside a package that no one can see, but for me, how do you know that I'm not cheating? How do you know that I'm not, let's say, making a payment where I'm paying myself money that I don't have? Now, in the context of blockchain, okay, when you do this with a bank, it's very simple, because you are, shielding stuff, but you're sending it to be decrypted by the bank. So the bank basically sees everything. But
that's like a trusted intermediary, effectively, right? So you're trusting them, and it's harder to do that basically on chain, because, like you're saying, there's no verification that you can obtain independently without trusting somebody.
Exactly. So that's where ZK comes in. ZK allows you to shield stuff and prove your integrity. That this is a true payment or trade, and everything. The orders match. You have sufficient, collateral in your position to do whatever you want. So that's what ZK gives you. Now, there are other technologies that deal with privacy, but I would say any one of them, if you put it on a blockchain, you also need ZK proofs. So let's go over them. FHE basically allows you to do the following thing. It stands for fully homomorphic encryption. It allows you to take your data, let's say whatever, your balance, your funds, your DNA. You can encrypt it with a key that only you have, and then you put it in encrypted form, let's say on the blockchain. Now you can ask the blockchain to do all kinds of computations on it. But then to decrypt it, you will need to do it. If you give the key to everyone, then of course everything is gone. So like, you can decrypt it, but if you want to prove, let's say, that you have sufficient balance in your
the key.
account, well, you need either to decrypt it and show everyone, or you need a proof of integrity. So you need ZK on top of that. So I'm saying FHE by itself doesn't help you in the context of a blockchain, because you need ZK in addition to that. And then trusted execution environment is just, I think it's you don't want to use that in a decentralized blockchain, because basically, well, the Lazarus group can probably break it can just, it's not a very safe technology for privacy. It can be broken. So
and there's no way you can, basically, there's no way FHE, you can combine FHE with an integrity proof. Is that not a thing?
Oh, yeah, you could, but I'm saying the difference is this. As you know, as you see on Starknet or Zcash, ZK by itself already helps you with a bunch of things on blockchain.
Right.
I'm saying that most of the cases where you have FHE, you're gonna need ZK, or you're gonna need to decrypt it at the end. So,
so you're saying basically like, hey, this, you have this nice thing that also gives you this property of scaling, which blockchains use anyways. So why not also and this nice thing also gives you kind of this integrity proof, and it gives you privacy. So like, why try to basically introduce like a new primitive and then try to like make it work with the the existing?
I don't oppose to FHE. I think there could be novel use cases in a blockchain that FHE unlocks, but you're going to need proofs alongside that. So I think in order to get interesting applications for FHE, you need FHE plus ZK. And
Got
then
it.
there could be like some new things like, I could imagine some forms of running an auction where, everyone puts their bids in and no one knows the result. Only afterwards, everyone, the right thing is computed. You could have stuff like that, but you would still need ZK proofs in addition to that.
No, makes total sense. And as of today, so basically, like, are Starks, and today right now, correct me if I'm wrong, I know Starks are used obviously on Starknet, but is anybody else use these as like the core unit of scaling, or
Oh, yeah.
are people still using kind of like a combination of Starks and Starks?
Okay, so almost all of the scaling teams who are working on scaling blockchains are using Starks. What is happening sometimes is the following thing. So Ethereum, a long time ago, introduced a specific subsidy for a very particular snark. So this is a snark that is, as we said, breakable by quantum computers. Actually, the computations involved with it are extremely inefficient, but nevertheless, a long time ago, Ethereum said, we're giving this thing a very strong subsidy. Okay. Now, this incentivized a bunch of teams to say, okay, even though all of the lifting and scaling is done by ZK Starks, to get the subsidy at the very end, we sort of wrap it inside.
This is the wrapping that happens before something is proved on L1.
Ethereum for the purposes of
Right.
claiming this subsidy.
Right.
I think it was not the right decision for Ethereum to go and give the subsidy, but it is a thing, and some teams utilize it for a variety of reasons, both because we have already immense scale, also for security reasons. We didn't want to complicate and use another system. And we've never used that subsidy, but I'm saying a lot of teams. So all of the teams working on scaling are using ZK Starks. Some of them are sort of, because of this subsidy, end up taking the very last part and wrapping it inside a snark.
With the snark, gotcha, makes sense. And so, okay, we've talked about a bunch of things and kind of got into the details. Maybe we talk a little bit from an application perspective, right? Which is like, what does and obviously there's different variations of privacy, right? Like, for example, we are set. By the way, for the listeners that don't know, Paradex runs a fork of public Starknet. So we are effectively just like a copy of public Starknet, and we did that because then that allowed us to a lot of control over the chain execution logic. We can do things basically things like privacy. We can do them at one or two different flavors, but the basically the short term flavor is effectively we can basically RPC masking, so we can make your calls to the RPC authenticated, and by virtue of that, not anybody can see other people's balance, and then we can encrypt your positions on L1, and then basically now you have full order and position privacy, effectively like a sex equivalent experience, right? So basically the operator such as Binance can see the positions, but the rest of the world cannot, right? And so we're some alpha for the listeners here. We're rolling this out
to see this out.
Yeah, we're very excited. We're working very closely with the Starkware team on this, and in the next, let's say, 2 to 3 weeks, mid-December, we think we can get this live on mainnet. So again, very big thing, and we will be we will be the only DEX out there. I mean, some of the others are claiming it, but I haven't actually seen anything at scale. But we will be the only at scale DEX out there with full order and position privacy, and we're very, very excited about that. And we've been early on this privacy narrative. I've had privacy act on my handle on X for over 24 months now, or 18 months. But maybe we just dive a little bit deeper into what does privacy mean for Starknet? What does that future look on chain? So, for example, once Starknet rolls privacy out, I'm talking about smart contract level privacy. How does it manifest itself on chain? Is it that you cannot see anything on chain, or is it that I can see things on chain and maybe certain things are encrypted? Maybe you could give us some idea of what to expect.
Okay, so first of all, it's a terrific question. First of all, a lot of this is in the planning phase. we're very excited and making very quick progress. Let me take a step back. So, as I said from the start, we all wanted to use the two superpowers of ZK Starks, which are scalability and privacy. But we said, okay, the markets are just not ready yet for the privacy stuff. So let's deal with scalability. Now we're very excited to add privacy as a core feature. So when Starkware does stuff, we usually take a very, very long-term view on getting things right. So what does right mean for us? The first thing you have to understand about privacy on blockchain is that it is a trade-off. There's a wide spectrum, and the big other side of the trade-off is UX, right? If you think about Zcash, which I co-founded, I don't know, 11 years ago, it took the point in the trade-off that says you get very, very high shielding, very good privacy, but the UX, you pay quite a lot for that. And I think a lot of the lack of adoption in the early days had to do with this. Okay. At the very other extreme, you have, let's say, Bitcoin, which basically says, you're left on your own to try and just find, new addresses and deal with privacy on your own. So you have good UX, especially if you don't care about privacy, but you have very little privacy. Okay. So where we're heading at is, first of all, we want to get it right, meaning we want good UX for users. We want users to be able to use it in a way that will look to them seamless. What I mean is maybe you press a button that says, I want privacy, or I agree to having privacy. But beyond that, when you use your wallets, when you do anything beyond that, it will all to you look exactly the same as before. So UX is number one constraint. The other one is we want stuff done at the protocol level, right? We don't want just to say, because by the way, already today, there are a number of very exciting applications that are adding privacy and dealing with privacy as smart contracts over Starknet, which is great.
Mhm.
Okay. But we want to do something bigger, which is to give you good privacy at the protocol level. So I would say those are the two main things: very good UX, good privacy at the protocol level. And then there's a bunch of things that I don't want to share just yet, but I would say those are, let's say, two pieces of alpha coming your way on Starknet soon.
So maybe I can imply something from that, and you can kind of point us in the right direction. So I mean, if you're saying you want great experience, but you don't want to change the way users behave, and then and you want to do it at like the core protocol / infrastructure level, it probably implies some sort of wallet level privacy or smart contract level privacy, where you're effectively to you can see what's happening, but to the world, basically, you cannot see the representation, or at least you cannot see the value of that representation on chain. So it sounds to me like this is more like a privacy token in your wallet. That is that like a fair characterization?
So the word privacy token carries a lot of different implications, but I would say, and I'm not sure, like, according to which definition you would say this would qualify. I'll say this: the balances in your address, your wallet, will be seen to you and will be very easy for you to understand what's going on. I will not be able to see them, but at the same time, it won't be as cumbersome as Zcash. And for instance, I may know that you did a transaction, right? Maybe I'll know that, but I won't know how much money, what you interacted with, what you did, stuff like that. So it will be a level of shielding that I think for most users, it gives you very good privacy. Like in particular, if you're James Wynn or this other whaler guy that you said that put a short, these things are going to be prevented. You can't just have random people on Twitter knowing your positions and so on. But at the same time, from the user's point of view, it's not like now you need to go and generate a ZK Snark on your hardware wallet every time, which is something that is impossible to this day. And that sort of, so it will be, standard transactions, very easy to use. You'll do it on all the amazing wallets on Starknet.
And does this impose any sort of compute like additional compute load on the operators, because now you're computing on whatever these are shielded inputs, right, that go into a particular output. Does this change the nature of how compute change? Like how should we think about that?
That's a terrific question. So yes, there will be okay, because you want to shield more stuff, it means that more ZK proofs somewhere along the way need to be generated, and someone needs more than today. Okay, today you submit a transaction on Starknet, or let's say on Paradex. It basically goes to some mempool or to some place. It's transparent, and then the operator basically processes it, puts it in a block. This is proved, and that's it. Okay, now we need to move to a world where there's going to be some shielding. So the basic transactions, you're not going to be able to easily see them. Okay, so proving will be needed somewhere along the way. The nice thing, or the way we're thinking about it, is finding ways where, you can outsource the proving itself. Meaning, and this is a way you'll get very good UX on your wallet and your applications. You'll also get privacy, and the hard work of proving will be decentralized and distributed elsewhere.
And maybe you could like touch on like how far proving itself has come, right, which allows us to do this stuff. So I know this stew in the it's already on mainnet, right? So maybe you
Yep.
can like give us some sense of like it almost feels to me, obviously being in the trenches, building this stuff, it feels like 6 months ago was like the Stone Age, and now with
I like
stew.
it. Was the
Yeah,
Stone Age.
yeah, it really was. And like, and I feel like we keep making these kind of like stepwise. I mean, they're not even stepwise. They're like universe transcending, jumps. If you think about the 48, 44 days where we were back then, and I mean, that was not too far ago. That was like
Yeah.
18, 24 months ago. And since then, like the world has just, I mean, it's insane to me to think where we were and where we are. And maybe you could give us, some insight into like what Stu has really meant, because there's the privacy is one piece of this, but if we don't have machines and hardware and software basically to basically complement these advances in all this like fancy work that we're doing on this side, it really doesn't mean anything, because we can't do it at like at a high throughput, low cost kind of way, right? So maybe give us some insight there.
Yeah, so as okay, we invented ZK Starks, and we invented Cairo, the programming language that allows you to prove things very efficiently, and a whole bunch of other things. But each one of these components was invented and then quickly productized in meaningful business relations that basically offer value to customers and saves them money. And of course, this has been the case with, for instance, Paradex. So the fact that you can have such small spreads and such low fees and such high throughput is because you have in the backend technology that allows for massive compute to be proved extremely efficiently. Now, for the listeners, here's something you may not know. Paradex actually has been one of the greatest drivers and inputs to us as we keep on improving the proving technology behind the scenes, because basically, you guys and us were working together in order to make sure that the latency is as small as possible, the throughput is as large as possible, the amount of compute is as large as possible, and the costs, not just on Ethereum, but in terms of hardware, machines on the cloud, proving it is lowest, so that this can then translate into the best UX and best costs, lowest fees for your customers. So Stone was our first generation prover. It was, it's like this it's like the Boeing 747 jumbo jet, right? That's been, hauling ass since forever and done so much to scaling Ethereum. But now you have sort of the Dreamliner version. It's something that is faster, more efficient, way more efficient, reducing latency. We've already cut down immensely the the block time, the finality time, the block production time, latency. So basically now we have something that has, I forgot the exact factors, but something like 3 to 5x and sometimes more reduced combined. Like latency has gone down by, I don't remember how much, whatever, 3 to 5 to 10x. Okay. At the same time, throughput has gone up by another factor of whatever, 10x or 100x. And, the cost per transaction in terms of, let's say, cloud cost to prove has also gone down by some, crazy factor, and we're not yet done. So this has been the move from Stone, the first prover, which was like the Jumbo 747, to Stu, which is like whatever, an F-35 or, like cutting edge technology.
And from a, let's say, a proving cost on a Cairo step basis, which is kind of the unit of how we measure like compute here, how much more can we expect in terms of cost? Let's say over the I don't know, for 12 months, where should we still expect something to the like the order of what happened from Stone to now, or do you see it like far lesser?
So definitely more coming, and I actually don't recall now where exactly. What we're doing is we're replacing with each and every version more and more parts that are sort of legacy and related to how Stone work with things that are more efficient. So like we have a whole data structure, we save the state with a Merkle Patricia tree that was based on a certain kind of hash function that was inefficient, and we're replacing it now with something that is extremely fast and also has lower proving time. So we moved from, I think it was either Poseidon or Peterson, to
From
Blade.
Peterson to I
Yeah.
remember.
And this thing is gonna reduce further. There are more and more components that are gonna be replaced, and the combined effect of all of that is gonna be even greater reduction in latency and cost and higher throughput.
So it's interesting, right? You L2s as kind of like the model for L2s to scale is kind of like high level broken down into there's the L1, which is like the core settlement layer, and then you have then you have obviously the sequencing and the proving. Like, where do you think we kind of like end up as like from a it's sort of like an end game perspective? Do you see things like shared sequencing? I'm jumping a bit, it's not really related on theme of privacy, but while we have you, kind of like, where do you see the end game for this, right? Because each of these things are obviously modular in themselves, right? Sequencing itself, you can kind of like optimize by shared sequencing, and there's a bunch of different people trying to do different things, and then on the proving side, of course, you just mentioned kind of there are these very core aggregation benefits to like Sharp and us being in there and somebody else being in there, because you get to amortize the cost of these things over over more Cairo steps or more compute, and that reduces the cost for everybody. Like, where do you see kind of like the model for scaling, right? And specifically, like, where do you see value being accrued to, right? Because again, that to me, like, that's important, right? It's like, does it accrue to the sequencing? Does it accrue to the proving? Some combination of the two? Like, how do you think about these things?
Okay, that's a terrific question. So there are several different like cost centers, or like places where performance is affected. So sequencing is the part that comes way before proving and is independent of proving, and it's basically, well, computing the correct state update from all the transactions that the users want to submit. Now, sequencing, as the term hints, is pretty sequential. Not entirely sequential, but there is something where, if your order comes before mine, you will get
ordering, basically, right? Just ordering. Yeah.
exactly. Now, so in order to speed things up there, you would like to go towards, as much as you can, towards parallelization on all kinds of levels. Okay. Because if you need to process one thing after the other, there's only so much speed that you can gain. So in order to improve and increase stuff, you want to go towards parallel or a parallelized system, which is something that I know that we're working with you guys on implementing also for Paradex. Okay. Now the proving comes after, at whatever sequence you, or in parallel, you processed a bunch of transactions. Now you basically need to prove and compute the state update. And there, the good news is that this part is extremely parallelizable. Okay. And you could get immense scale. And the way you get scale is by putting more machines and breaking up and using recursion. So this is a part that scales very well, but you have to be aware of the costs, right? Because if you scale, if you're going to buy whatever the latest, if you need to buy the latest GPUs and a bunch of them, then you'll end up where I think like Ethereum real-time proving is today, where theoretically you could barely do real-time proving, but it's going to cost you like something that is Yeah, it costs you a lot, and that's something that, as a team that cares about production and real users, that's not a path we're interested in exploring.
Mhm.
Okay, and then so we mentioned the proving cost, the sequencing, and then there's another factor, which is how much do you pay to put this stuff on chain? And here there's also a bunch of variants. Do you put all the data in blobs? Do you put it on layer one Ethereum? Do you use a Validium model? Basically, we allow all of these things to exist, and we basically work with our different customers and their clients to allow them to use whatever they want.
So, but like in this, do you see, like, let's say a project, hypothetically, a new project comes, to this world. I've always believed, for instance, that, and actually this was one of the founding kind of principles as to like why we decided to go app chains, is because since the beginning, it's been very clear to me that, the vision for the future is every brand will want its own chain, right? And if that is true, and you kind of are seeing this in, like, all these Robinhood is trying its own thing, et cetera, et cetera. Are they going to want their own L1, or are they going to want to focus on performance and customization and sit on the L2 and sit on the L1 and let the L1 handle kind of like, governance, like, the kind of like the bare bones governance piece, right? And so to us, that's always been sort of true. And so we see a future, and we put our money where our mouth is, because we said, hey, we want our own app chain, because we think in the future everybody's going to want one. And Ethereum will be forced to kind of figure out interop, and Vitalik has been talking about a bunch about this recently. How do you see it? But even in this model, for these, let's say a new company or a new project comes and says, okay, hey, great, I want my own chain, right? Now there is still this kind of like decision matrix that they have to go through, right? Which is like, okay, I have my own chain, but is it that I just build my own single sequencer, or let's say I get another sequencer, or I get some group of sequencers, and then let's say maybe I contract my proving to a proving network, right? So do you think you will see sort of an increased unbundling of these individual services going forward? Or do you see it like, where the same company offering basically like all three things, which is kind of like what you guys do today, which is more sort of like the AWS model, right? Which is you go in one place and AWS kind of like takes care of everything for you. So how do you think about whether there will be this kind of like forced unbundling? Or I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Okay, I believe in I think there's this famous phrase from economics. I think it's called Keiretsu or Keiretsu. It's something that happened in Japan in the second half of the 20th century, as Japan was going through this hyper growth period, where a lot of the successful corporations, purchased the stake and helped other corporations. Now, why am I saying this? I think, and again, we put our mouth where our we put our money where our mouth is. I believe in sort of this intermingling and feedback loops between the infrastructure layer and the applications on it. So, for instance, right after we launched Starknet, we already announced this as part of the tokenomics model, and we implemented it, this thing we call Devonomics, which basically says we're going to take a fraction of the fees that are paid by users and then send them to the applications for which those users are, valuing and paying in order to use. So we want to drive value from the infrastructure layer to the applications. At the same time, we also want the other thing. We want applications from their application fees to be buying into the infrastructure layer, so that value is basically shared across. And this is both a form of hedging between the applications and the infrastructure. But more importantly, this is part of creating a very, robust sort of strong fabric where the infrastructure is incentivized to make the end applications really successful, and the applications are really incentivized to ensure that the infrastructure is working properly and servicing them. So that's the model that I believe in, and we'll be, here's some more alpha, we'll be releasing a lot more of tokenomics models based on this basic principle of like Keiretsu or whatever however it is pronounced.
Mio, this is a great point, and maybe I can expound on this. This is something I'm very sort of like I've been thinking about this kind of like very deeply over the last, let's say, 2 years, especially as these ecosystems have continued to grow and scale. But the way I tend to think about it, and a lot of people disagree with me, so I'm definitely, this is not like a consensus opinion, or at least I haven't heard too many people to speak about it this way. But the way to really simplify this in a way, and just to kind of build on your point, which is I tend to think of projects and companies as like they are think of them as like standalone L2 blockchains, right? Which is they're sold, like the goal of a company is to maximize growth, right? Because they maximize revenue by doing so, right? If this company is built on Ethereum, like if this, let's say it uses an L2 and is then settles on Ethereum, Ethereum to me is a government, right? And effectively the role of a government is not to maximize growth, it's to reduce variance, right? Because you want to reduce the long tail, the probabilities of long tail outcomes in society, right? So the way you do that is through law enforcement, through security, through all these sort of civic functions and governance that governments sort of provide, and in return for that, companies and individuals pay taxes, right, which are tied to your income. So, which is, I think, similar to what you're saying. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, but to me, it sounds like for you think for a successful model on a successful relationship between business and blockchain, for it to scale, there needs to be sort of this exchange of value tied to the top line, which is effectively revenue and income. Is that a good way of thinking about it?
Yes, I think, or here's another, I like your analogy. Another one, again, to take, like, say, a state and, then corporations. If the infrastructure is something like the state, and then the various applications are, let's say, startups or, companies. So, yes, definitely the state is very incentivized, and part of its role is to make sure that there are good business conditions for companies to thrive.
Correct.
But there's also the reverse direction in which the companies really need the state to be well run,
Correct. So
funded.
they can invest in infrastructure and roads and
Yes,
security
yes,
and
yes,
all of
yes.
that, right?
Yes,
Laws.
it's
Yeah,
prosper.
exactly.
And this sort of realization that it's very important, and you want you want the companies to rely on the state, and you want the state to rely on the companies, and sort of to work together. This is something that, again, we already implemented in some of our tokenomics, but a lot more is going to be.
Let me ask you a hard question. Like, it's very easy to work. I think it's easy to do it in the context of an L2 blockchain and like an L2 business, because it's on the same layer. But like, how do you do this between L2 blockchain and L1 blockchain? Like, because otherwise Ethereum as an L1 doesn't really benefit. I mean, it's tough for Ethereum to kind of know what the revenue the L2s are producing, right? And so if we're saying we want to tax revenues, like how do you think about this? Like, is that even possible? Because I think if Ethereum is, I mean, people have joked about saying Ethereum should start charging tariffs on these L2s, but I don't think that's very far away from this idea that we're talking about, right? Because ultimately, if you want the L2 blockchain to be successful, that principle should also apply to Ethereum, right? On L1. So how do you think about that problem, and if you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's if I were Ethereum, I would apply the same sort of philosophy that we're applying at Starknet, which basically says for Ethereum to thrive, it's not just important that that those who hold, let's say, ETH as stakers operate it. You would say, you know what? I would like those who operate L2s to receive stake and be incentivized. I would like them to be part of those who are operating the L1. I would like applications like, Uniswap or Aave and their users and their token holders to be part of this thing where they are invited to operate what Ethereum is. And then you would get, the way to do it is you would offer, let's say, part of the fees or the new minting to those protocols based on how much they're active, how much activity or how much fees they're generating. And then I would think that the same thing should apply in the other direction, which is that, Uniswap should say, oh, for my decentralization, it would be really beneficial if Ethereum stakers are incentivized to operate whatever parts I need.
Mhm.
And in order to make that happen, I'm going to actually,
Drop.
send part of the fees or something to those stakers so that they help me, secure my application. And this is the kind of logic I would apply also on Ethereum.
Gotcha. No, it's super interesting. Lots of there's obviously we could keep going on and on with this conversation, but I know we're almost at time. So anything you want to drop for our listeners here?
Oh yeah, one important thing. I want to thank you, Fiddy, and the Paradex team for all of the completely amazing and foundational and disruptive work that you've been doing in the area of dexes. You're one of the very best perps decks out there. You have an amazing UX, very deep understanding of markets and users, and you listen to them very intently. You have a number of exciting new features that no one else is going to have. And I want the listeners to know that, I and Starkware and Starknet were very sort of proud and happy to have you and your team as partners in this beautiful journey.
Awesome, thank you very much. And yeah, no, it's been fantastic working with you guys, and we've kind of like we push each other, I think, in the right way. Ultimately, it's always a better outcome, and but it's amazing. Like I said, it's an amazing time to be alive because we get to work with such amazing people and with such frontier technology. And we're not just doing frontier research with this technology, right? We're implementing it in production at scale, applied to hundreds of millions of dollars. It's like a very high stakes game, and it's exciting. So no, thank you again for the support, and I'm very excited for all the releases. I really think that the hard part of battling it out with ZK Tech is really behind us, right? That was over the last 24 months where Ethereum itself was not scalable. Data availability, we had issues, we had throughput issues. Starknet itself had to go through a bunch of iteration, but I think most of that is now behind us, and I think I couldn't be more excited for the future, because I think it's going to be very clear that the teams that have kind of taken shortcuts are going to be very, in some you can very clearly see that you cannot do perps and spot in the same account because of the limitations of cost and throughput. But there are teams like us that have kind of like battled it out, with you guys kind of alongside us. And I think you're going to start to see that divergence very soon. So, I couldn't be more excited for 2026. And it's also great timing for TGE and stuff, right? So very exciting times. But again, thank you very much for your time today. Super exciting conversations. And yeah, hope to have you on again soon.
Thank you. We'll do that. Thank you.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye.